Am I the for using my sister-in-law's garden flowers in my wedding bouquet? My wedding was put on hold due to the coronavirus. During this time, my sister-in-law's grandfather got sick, so she traveled to stay with her family. I was left in charge of feeding her dog. My sister-in-law has always grown beautiful flowers and succulents. She knows how much I admire her green thumb. Before she left, she all the heads off her roses, and this is where I made my mistake. At the time, I did not know you could the heads off of roses and make more grow. So, when I was overfeeding the dog, I noticed more growing and was amazed. Then, when the restrictions in my country were lifted, my husband and I decided to throw together a quick wedding ceremony. The idea just came to me to use the roses she had grown, thinking that since she had them, she wouldn't know I'd taken any. As I was overcutting them, I remembered the succulents and decided to grab a few in their pots to use as centerpieces. We'd always wanted to get married in my grandmother's church and venue hall, which was 2 hours away from our home and my sister-in-law's home. She decided she'd come back for the wedding but would fly into the local airport and then go straight to the local hotel instead of going home when she landed, then driving to the wedding and back all in one day. The wedding itself went beautifully, she was happy, and I was so happy. Everyone was happy. We get to the after party, and my sister-in-law notices the succulents and gets very angry, asking if they are hers and how I could do that. She started trying to them up. Unfortunately, this caused a light fuss while I asked her to stop, that she was ruining my wedding. While I grabbed at the succulents, she loudly said, "You are stealing from me." My family wrongly took this to mean they could take the succulents. The ones they didn't take ended up damaged as people touched the leaves and squeezed them. My sister-in-law took all my succulent centers that she could and left in a huff. After that, the party died down. Pretty much everyone in her family took her side, whereas my family thought it was just flowers and that it was ridiculous. When she arrived home the next day, she noticed the roses were gone and sent me a message saying, "How could you steal my plants without permission?" And that she was sick of me overstepping all the time. Personally, I feel like they're just plants, they will grow back. It's a shame for her to have spoiled the after party when she could have just left the succulents, and most people would have ignored them. But I also understand she spent a lot of time and money growing many of these plants, and they're her pastime that I should have asked to use them. So, Reddit, am I the now? Story 1 comments, Ops reply of course, you're going to be the in this situation. You literally stole from someone's garden. I know quite a few keen gardeners, and they would be bad forensic. Says, good God, you're the as a plant enthusiast myself, I'd be she has every right to be upset, you did steal her plants. You went over to her house and took things that did not belong to you and butchered her rose bushes. You owe her a massive apology and some monetary reimbursement for the damaged plants, at the very least. A deleted user says, as a crazy plant lady, my is boiling. Patio Furniture says, you're in and a cheap one at that. You didn't borrow her plants, you destroyed her garden. MMMV but says, of course, you took your sister-in-law's property without asking her. That's called stealing. You didn't even have the courtesy to tell her before she got to the after party and noticed it on her own. That's cowardly and rude. Your family stole the succulents, and the ones that they didn't take got damaged by your guests. You owe your sister-in-law a massive apology along with whatever funds it takes to restore her property to the condition it was in when you found it. Bugaboo Mama says, you did not borrow, you stole. You nearly killed her garden because you probably had no idea what you were doing but just started picking what you pleased. She put time and money into her plants, and you felt entitled to take them. You did cross a boundary, and you need to apologize. In between all this, Op edited the post and said, fine, I am the whatever. Oh dear me. I'd have brought the succulents back the next day, and if the roses grew back, once they grow back again, I figured. But okay, whatever, I'm the sure. So the commenters continued after that, you're the big time. Do you know how much time, money, and effort goes into growing things, especially roses and succulents? You didn't even ask her. I wouldn't blame her if she never talks to you again. You sound ridiculously entitled. Nico says, and after that edit, I'd be willing to bet this isn't an out-of-character instance of assholery from Op. Yikes. I feel so bad for the sister-in-law. Yeah, I mean, even Op themselves said she received a message from her sister-in-law saying that she was sick of Op overstepping all the time, which pretty much says it all, right? So, Op came in with an edit/update and says, one of you snitches posted it in a group shaming weddings. Showed me the screenshot. I found the group and have a mutual friend on it. Roses grow back, succulents are €2 in grocery stores. But my life, my human life, could be over. You've all left a stain on my beautiful memory over cheap plants. I, however, am going on vacation tonight. When I'm back, I'll be buying some grocery succulents for my sister-in-law, who told me, no, it's fine, via private message when I asked if she wanted me to buy her some. So all of your callouts are no good. I'm not the cold person you frame me as. I love my sister, and I'm heartbroken that I crossed a boundary. Then the final comments on this one said, you're the purely for posting to this sub, then throwing a toddler tantrum and pouting when you didn't get the answer you wanted. A deleted user says, oh my god, look at the way you have accepted the judgment. You're the without a doubt. As a plant person, I can tell you my plants are my babies. If you were my sister-in-law, you'd be paying much more. I'd have made a much bigger scene and announced to all the guests how you stole from me, and I would definitely have taken things dear to you. Snap out of your selfish world and stop taking advantage of other people. Renzi Face says, oh my god, you're the and you even misrepresented the depth of your assholery in the title. You didn't just use her flowers in your bouquet, you plundered her garden and undid hours, days, or months of effort. You should be begging for her forgiveness. Your family probably bears some of the blame for your actions because no one who raised you or was part of shaping your worldview told you that other people's property is off limits and that you should be respectful and remorseful if something you did causes someone else distress or loss. I can't believe they're supporting you in this. I'm disgusted with you all. Edit to point and laugh at your edit. Reputations grow back sometimes, and if you could have gotten comparable plants for $2 each, why didn't you just pay for some to use? Why did you take hers? You did a thoughtless, hurtful thing and are not showing remorse for anything except being outed. Of course, you're getting dragged. And let me remind you that no, it's fine has never, in the history of ever, meant that anything is fine. Jesus. And that last comment there is absolutely right. When your sister-in-law replied to Op saying, no, it's fine, it means things ain't fine. You messed up big time, but you know Op's so clueless in this that they're just not seeing anything, are they? The fact that they went, can you imagine going into someone's garden and just helping yourself to the plants there? Gee now, let's move on to another story. Our next story comes from a throwaway account, and it says, either for my sister out after she laughed at me and my disabled wife? Before we do get into the story, a couple of trigger warnings. There's talk of a car accident, severe body injuries, and disability discrimination. So if you don't want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. It starts, my wife and I are both 23. We were dating since we were 15, and 4 years ago, we got married. Our families were against us getting married so early on because we were too young to commit, but we got married, and they attended, though we could sense their discomfort. Now, her family and mine get along with each other, and I felt like we were all getting along because we both are happy, and so were our families. 7 months ago, my wife had an accident. She broke both of her legs and has scars on her face, which got her depressed. But I tried my best to help her, to comfort her. The doctors are trying their best, and I am providing as much physical and emotional support as I can. But the truth is, she's probably paralyzed for life. She's not going to go back to the way she was, she knows, and so do I, but I'm trying my best to help my wife. 3 days ago, when my sister came to visit us, she got and started making fun of our situation. She started blabbering and said it's karma for everyone in our family. Thankfully, my wife wasn't around, she was sleeping. I asked her to get in the car, and I dropped her at her place. The next day, she says that she's sorry and didn't mean to me, but I told her that what she said me. I would have forgiven her if she hit me, but making fun of what we are going through, I cannot accept that. I'm never going to talk to her ever again. But my parents are saying that my sister was and I should forgive her and forget it because she was, but I feel like she was extremely disrespectful to us in our struggle, making fun of us. Story 2 comments. Ops replies a comment says, not the but she was is not an excuse. Go commit a crime, and when you're in front of the judge in court, tell them, I shouldn't be punished because I was, and see how far that gets you. People don't just make things up out of the blue, they say things they've been thinking about all along but when they're sober are smart enough to keep it to themselves. Ops says, actually, yes, that's what I'm most concerned about. I think my sister does hate my wife so much that she's enjoying her suffering. Does she not realize that her brother is also suffering? Does she hate me as well? I love her, and I thought she loved me, even though we had a rough time. But to say this, I would have preferred if my sister berated me or insulted or slapped me instead of what she said. At least I could have forgiven her, but she crossed boundaries, and I don't know how to forget her words, even if she was. Another commenter says, not that your sister's comments were incredibly insensitive and hurtful, especially given the challenges you and your wife are facing. Being doesn't excuse such behavior. It's understandable that you'd want to distance yourself from someone who disrespects your situation so blatantly. Your parents may want to keep the peace, but your feelings are valid, and it's important to prioritize your and your wife's well-being. Setting your boundary for your sister is a reasonable response to her actions. The last commenter says, not the words or sober thoughts. About 3.5 weeks later, Op comes in with an update and says, I made a post here about 3 weeks ago. TLDR, my sister came over, got and laughed at my wife, saying it's karma, that's why she got disabled. I dropped her off and told her not to talk to me because I cannot accept her insults towards my wife. 2 days ago, my sister called me. She said she wants to talk to me because she doesn't want to ruin our sibling relationship just because she was, and she regrets what she said and feels guilty. I told her I cannot have this conversation with her in my house because my wife will get if she hears our conversation. I asked her to meet me at the park near our house. When she arrived, she immediately hugged me and said that she's sorry for what she said and that she'll make sure to never repeat the same mistake again and won't ever say something like that, Even if she wanted me to leave my wife because she's disabled and spend my life with a partner who's not a burden on me. What I politely told her was that what she said was highly offensive and rude, and my wife is not a burden. If my wife was around, she'd be so devastated. She's already suffering because her body changed drastically, and even if you hate my wife or anyone, you shouldn't be enjoying their misery or making fun of it. My sister said she is sorry and would do anything to go back to how things were. I told her that I can't forget about what she said so easily and that for now, she should leave. My sister just asked me to promise her not to her off completely, which I agreed to. Now I don't know if I should forgive my sister. I am obviously, but I think maybe I should forgive her because she was. If I ask my parents, they will obviously tell me to do so, so they've been trying to convince me to forgive her. I definitely cannot talk to my wife about this because it would hurt, and she's going through a lot. Story 2 comments. Ops replies. A commenter says, I'm confused. Did she say she wanted to leave your wife because she's a burden during the park visit, or was that something she said? Well, if it's the former, what the she essentially just doubled down on the sentiment thinking she was making amends. Op replies, when my sister was, she laughed and said our situation was karma for everyone in our family. I immediately asked her to get in the car and dropped her off. During her recent visit, she said she wanted me to be with someone else instead of a burden. I know she and everyone else were against our marriage, and it's not a surprise to me that she doesn't like my wife, but I still choose my wife, and I will be in her life until the end. I'm not completely sure if she just hates my wife for whatever reasons or if she has found another woman for me or just wants to my wife, which is basically me. I am willing to still maintain my relationship with my sister, even if it's just low contact, but if I sense that she wants to my wife in any way, I will completely her out of my life. My wife and I are going through a very difficult situation already, and I don't want her to suffer any further. If my sister keeps her opinion to herself, then we can still maintain our sibling bond. If not, then oh well. I already choose my wife above everyone and all else. A commenter says, no, she may have said that when she was, but she doubled down by saying that you should leave your wife for being a burden the next time you saw her. I'm assuming she was sober. Your sister clearly feels this way. If you keep in contact, you run the risk of her saying this to your wife. Either way, you should tell your wife, maybe not what the comments were, but that they were enough to make you contact. Many other comments say, you know, your sister just hasn't changed. She's not going to change. She's always been thinking this. The fact that she said it at the park visit, not just when she was, she's still saying this even after the fact as she's apologizing. That's absolute madness. What would you do in this situation if you were Op? That's definitely a no contact situation for me. But what do you think? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Our next story comes from our very own subreddit, r/Mark Narrations. Don't forget to share your stories there if you have one, of course. Love a bit of neighbor drama, by the way. It's from Even Occasion 7470, and it says, am I the for having a crash with a blind man? Hey. So, I was in the Italian Alps last week for a skiing trip, and something crazy happened. It all started at the top of the red slope when I randomly noticed two people, a man and a woman, wearing neon vests with some text in German, and the woman was holding a microphone. I didn't make too much of it. They began to ski, and shortly after, my friend and I set off too. As we got closer to them, I realized how slow they were going and that they were taking up so much of the slope. I decided I would eventually overtake them when it was safe to do so. My friend had already passed them. At one point, I sped up and finally couldn't see the man as I'd successfully passed him, with only the woman ahead of me left to overtake. Until boom. The man crashed into me from behind and fell to the ground. I luckily managed to keep standing and stopped to check he was okay a few meters down. All of a sudden, they both started shouting at me in German. I don't speak German, but I don't think they were happy. I apologized in English, but it didn't help. So, knowing the man looked okay, I left to meet my friend at the bottom. I'm with my friend, waiting in the queue. I told her of the incident in our native language and exclaimed, I don't know where he was looking. Is he blind or something? Suddenly, some people around me who understood started to laugh. It's common for guides to visit the Alps, and I looked around and realized some other people were wearing these vests too, also with text on the back, this time in English. Am I the edit? I did instantly regret my comment. I was just annoyed that someone who couldn't ski very well was on the red slope and caused a crash. I personally don't know the etiquette in skiing. I've been thinking about it. I really want to go skiing at some point on some proper hills. I've only done dry slope skiing in the past and learned the very basics, but it does look a lot of fun, and I want to do that in the future. At some point, but you know, again, I don't know the etiquette. I don't know if you should be shouting something as you overtake or something along those lines. But I'm going to go with a no, no one's in here. It just seems like an unfortunate situation. You know, saying what you said was unfortunate timing and obviously not ideal, but from your perspective, you didn't know he was actually blind. I would have kind of thought that the guide had to keep him as close as possible to manage him down. It sounded like she was somewhat in front of him. Again, I don't know how that worked. I'm going to do a bit of YouTubing after this to see if I can learn a thing or two. Soft shoulder says, you mildly stuck your foot in it. He hit you from behind while I assumed the woman he was with was his guide. She should have been in a spot to keep it from happening. Crashes during skiing happen all the time. You stopped and made sure he was okay. I watch a guy on YouTube called The Blind Surfer. He had a wetsuit with huge bright letters that said, I'm blind, and he gets yelled at a lot. You didn't do that, you had no idea at the time. Not the imaginary bike says, not the I worked the slopes when I was younger, and that guide is supposed to keep her charge in sight, under control, and others safe, not just him. We a guide that was a failure at it, and the skier was back, and she was actually a great skier with the new guide. There weren't too many more comments after that. A lot of not the someone suggesting, can't you just shout passing as you do so? But what about you guys? What about you avid skiers out there? What would you do in the situation? Is it something you should have knowledge of beforehand? As I said, I'm totally clueless about this. Love to learn a thing or two, so let me know in the comments below. Just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, your support, your time, it always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, showing kindness and empathy towards one another down in the comments as well. It's absolutely amazing. Keep being yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.